Hey friends, Ash here with Gents with another fragrance review. Today, we're taking a look at this bad boy right here, Choo Urban Hero, which actually made my list of worst fragrance releases of 2019. So you guys already know how I feel about this just by this fragrance being on that list. But I'm going to do this review as unbiased as I can. I'm going to let you guys know how this fragrance smells as it goes through the opening, the mid, the dry down, let you know what it might be comparable to out there as far as other designer fragrances, let you know situations that it might work really well, and let you know if this might appeal to you or not, because it does not appeal to me. That said, I don't want to make this just a complete bashing video, so I'm going to try to make it informative as well. That way some of you can actually get a little bit of use out of this, and it's not just, 10 minutes of me saying, hey, Urban Hero sucks. We'll check out the presentation for this, like always, and do the breakdown that I talked about before. We've got a lot to cover here, so let's just go ahead and jump into it. Before we go any further, I need to let you guys know that this fragrance was sent to me for review by Fragrance X. If you're unaware of FragranceX.com, it's a great discounter where you can buy authentic, niche, and designer fragrances at great prices. They have really fast shipping, great customer service. They're one of my personal favorite stores. I use them all the time, and they did send me this bottle. Though, of course, it's not going to affect my review. I've already told you guys I don't like it. I'm gonna try to clean these fingerprints off this bottle really quickly because this is a fingerprint magnet, and let's go ahead and check out the presentation. So here's a good close-up of your box. You've got the name of the house, name of the fragrance right here, size and concentration at the bottom. This pattern wraps around to the back of the box, but it's not on the sides. So there's that pattern. Then on the bottom is where you'll find your ingredients, your batch code, and your barcode. Here's a good look at the bottle. You can see there it's very reflective. It has this kind of metallic sheen to it here, and then it's clear on the bottom. There is your sticker with your batch code. And the cap is a heavy metal that clicks into place. It actually feels much nicer than it looks. It looked pretty cheap online, but then when you actually get it in, the cap is quite nice. And like always, I'll go ahead and waste a spray for you guys so you can check out the Atomizer. There we go. It sprays kind of a concentrated blast. So you can see right here on my hand, it's got a big wet spot right here. So it sprays out like a heavy concentrated blast. That's the sort of atomizer it is. It's not one of those ones that gives you a nice fine mist. Let's go ahead and break this one down now. Choo Urban Hero. If you look on Fragrantica.com, you'll see that most people on there are hating on this fairly heavily. The dislike bar, very large. The like bar, small. The love bar, even smaller. It's not getting a whole bunch of love. Not getting a whole bunch of praise. That being said, if you look elsewhere, on places that sell fragrances at retail, Belk, Macy's, Ulta, Sephora, places like that, you'll see in the reviews for this fragrance on those websites that those people think that it smells very, very nice. And as we talk further in this review, you'll see why that is, but a Cliff's Notes version is just people that are very casually into fragrances are going to find this very appealing. People that have smelled a whole lot of fragrances are going to find this very boring, at least in general. Of course, there are going to be some exceptions. Some people that are very casually into fragrances will smell this and not dig it. Some people that have huge collections will smell this and dig it. There are always outliers. So when you first spray this one on, it's going to give you a similar vibe to this fragrance here, Paco Rabanne Invictus. Now, it's not the exact same as Paco Rabanne Invictus, it just has that similar DNA. And actually, in my most influential designer list that covered 2010 through 2019, Paco Rabanne Invictus was one of the top fragrances in my list. And the reason for that is the DNA of Invictus is found in so many different designer releases nowadays. This one joins that list. The top notes here officially are lemon caviar and black pepper. So that is a very strange combo. I don't think you'll find that in any other fragrance, period. Lemon caviar. Yeah, like fish eggs. I don't get any fishy note here though. There's no fishy accord, so that's a good thing because I don't think you'd want to have a fragrance, spray it on and go like, oh wow, who smells like fish? So thankfully the caviar here doesn't come across like fish eggs. More than anything, it just comes across like a little bit of a salty undertone. And that's pretty much the same thing, and again, not the exact same as this fragrance, but the same thing that you'll find in fragrances like Invictus, with a marine accord or a sea accord. Those notes a lot of times come across just kind of salty, and that's how it comes across in here, the lemon caviar. Now there's a little hint of citrus in here, but it's more a nuance. This is not the kind of fragrance that you spray on and you're like, oh wow, what a huge blast of citrus. Is there a bit in here off the top? Yeah, there is, but there's not a huge bergamot or a big grapefruit or anything like that. And the black pepper in here doesn't come across like a real black pepper, like a true to life black pepper. It's just more a mild, warm spiciness. And if it didn't say black pepper in the top of this fragrance, then when I smelled it right off the top, I wouldn't be able to tell you guys, oh, that's black pepper. As it dries down into the mid, you start to pick up a leather note in Urban Hero, and that's actually where the black pepper comes out a little bit more for me, because it almost comes across like leather working in with black pepper, like the black pepper is almost part of the leather note in the fragrance. So while it's listed as a top note, the black pepper, I don't get a ton of that in the opening. I get it more once the leather actually starts to come out. Still yet though, it's not a strong black pepper, even when it does work in with the leather, and that's kind of a tongue twister, pepper, leather, but when you head through the mid and you do pick that leather up, it comes across more like a clean leather. It doesn't come across like a dirty leather or an oily kind of leather, which you'll sometimes get in other fragrances, especially ones that are more leather-centric. This one is just like a fresher leather, if that makes any sense. There's also rosewood in here, which is going to give a light bit of woodiness, but the woodiness in this fragrance is not overly prominent. It's just kind of a base that the other notes work off of. So in the mid there, it's clean, sweet, slightly spicy, and leather-centric really for me in the mid. There's also a gray amber that you start picking up in the mid, and that's really just a fancy way of saying ambroxan or an ambroxan type of note. Yeah, gray amber. That ambroxan slash gray amber gives off a warm, kind of sweet vibe, and that stays for the rest of the life of the fragrance. Once you hit the dry down, it's more of a light vetiver fragrance with the residual gray amber and woods that were there in the mid. There's a slight touch of spice there in the dry down, but not a whole lot. It's fairly basic when you hit the dry down, to be honest, or very basic. It's pleasant, but it's just a clean, light, slightly dusty vetiver, essentially, with all those other notes just playing as kind of nuances. And to me, the fragrance, like I said at the beginning of all of this, is just very basic. It's boring. It's something that I've smelled before. It takes the Invictus DNA, makes a few tweaks to it here and there, and then says, hey, it's a brand new fragrance here, Jimmy Choo Urban Hero. It's not as attention-grabbing as Invictus, though it is as youthful as Invictus is. And yeah, I know there's leather in here, but it's still, at the end of the day, a sweet, clean sort of scent. It's not terribly cheap at discounters yet. It's still in the, I think, $50 range, somewhere in there, and that's way too expensive for this in my opinion. This is going to be a fragrance that's trying to compete with the big boys out there, the Yves Saint Laurent Wise, the Invictus line of fragrances, things like that. Though in my opinion, it's just not as good as any of those fragrances. I would pick pretty much any of them over this one. All that being said though, this is the type of fragrance that a lot of people are going to enjoy. It's going to be a mass appealing sort of scent. It's just, I think that you'll have better results with the ones I just talked about. The Yves Saint Laurent Y line, those fragrances, all three are better than this one. The Invictus line, especially if you're younger, is better than this one right here. The Bleu de Chanel line is better than this fragrance. That being said though, Bleu de Chanel doesn't have, you know, that similar kind of Invictus-y scent. It's a little bit more mature, so probably guys in their, you know, mid-20s and up might like Bleu de Chanel more than the Invictus line. I know I'm rambling a little bit there, but to sum it all up, I just think that it's not great. As far as blue fragrances go, it's boring, doesn't do anything new, doesn't stand out, and it's just kind of there. A lot of people will smell it on you and think it smells nice, but if you take that money that you would have spent on this one and put it toward another blue fragrance, if that's what you're in the market for, you'll have better results, in my opinion. Now let's talk about the performance really quickly. This one has above average longevity for me. 7+ hours the times that I've worn it, so I've got no qualms with that whatsoever. But interestingly enough, the projection kind of fades away very quickly. So in the opening, like right now, where I sprayed it on just a little bit before, it's projecting very well. I can pick it up. Anybody around me is going to be able to pick it up as I move around. The top of the fragrance projects very well. Once you start working through the mid though, this one starts sitting closer to the skin, and for me, it happens quite rapidly. Once the leather comes out and kind of works in with the spices, that projects well for 20-ish minutes or so, but after that, it starts to rapidly sit closer, and then by the time you've started to work into the dry down, it's very close to the skin. Now, it lingers there for a long time, for many hours. It sits right there, but it's barely projecting off my skin at that point. So I guess on the whole, I would say it's maybe slightly above average when you factor everything in terms of performance, so it's not terrible. It's got good longevity. It's just the projection is kind of hit or miss. At the beginning, it's a hit, and then as it works into the mid and through the mid, fades away quickly and becomes a bit of a miss. In terms of versatility, when I would wear this, spring and summertime for me, again, one of those clean, sweet sort of scents. It's not got a huge amount of depth, so it's not something that makes me think about fall and wintertime wear. In terms of day or night, I think either one. You could wear this to a club, you could wear this on a date, you could wear this casually. Not something that I think of as a formal fragrance. It comes across a little bit more youthful, slightly more mature. So as far as formal fragrances go, I think you could be better suited going with something, at least if we're talking blue fragrances, in the Bleu de Chanel line, or maybe Y Eau de Parfum would be a little bit better. And then as far as office wear, I think that you could pull it off in an office, but it's not something that I personally would really want to wear, pretty much for the same reasons that I talked about with formal wear. It's not something that really screams out to me, you know, business situations. That being said, you could wear it in those situations if you really like this fragrance. It's not so youthful that it's going to come across off-putting or anything like that. Like I said at the beginning of the video, guys, I personally don't really like this one a huge amount. It's not something that grabs my attention. It's not something that really resonates with me. I'm not an enormous fan of the Invictus DNA. There are some fragrances that do come across like they have a little bit of that Invictus, a little touch of it, and it works for me. Yves Saint Laurent Y Live is like that. But for the most part, those type of fragrances I just don't overly like. And again, personally, I think if you do very much like that DNA, the Invictus DNA, you'd be better suited getting a fragrance from the Invictus line, like Invictus Legend or Y Live. And if you don't like that DNA, this one may not resonate with you either. As I said earlier, it's not the exact same as Invictus, but when you first spray it on there in the opening, you'll get a little hint of it and you'll be like, oh, okay, I can see that inspiration there. But I do think that if you're, you know, maybe under middle-aged, a younger guy up to, let's say, your mid-30s, something like that, this could potentially work for you. It is versatile. It is compliment pulling. It's just a bit on the boring side for me personally, and I don't much care for it. If you've smelled that fragrance, guys, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. I know that a lot of people on Fragrantica absolutely hate it, but Fragrantica is not everyone. So I imagine there are a lot of you out there that actually do really enjoy this and get a lot of wear out of it. And if so, let us know. As always, thank you guys so much for all of your support. I'll see you guys tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you all.